Hi, everyone. I thought I'd have another go at doing a live stream. Not sure how well it will work. And it, the simple reason, as I explained in the um, commentary or the description. Oh, wow. There's someone watching, I think. Welcome if you've joined. I just thought I'd try live streaming here now. So Um, no, they've left, but never mind. Um, I thought what I would do is have a go at talking about films that people like. But of course, if it's just me watching, no, if someone else is watching, feel free to leave a message in the chat and say which films you watch, um, and you know what you like about particular films. Could talk about other subjects. I have thought about a few other possibilities, um, types of music. Be quite interested to know what you think about. What's your favourite genre of music? Um, what else? Well, I'll start with film because that's the thing I've been pretty interested in for many, many years. Um, since about 2003, I've had a cinema card, and that means it's an unlimited card. It means I can actually go to the cinema as often as I want, see as many films as I want. So um, back in 2003, it was called UGC, and that seems to just be a French company now. But there was a British and Irish version that got bought over in 2004-5 by Cineworld, and so I was really pleased that they continued the same deal with the unlimited card. And over the years since that time, since the mid noughties, I've just watched more and more films, every single genre, although I've got a particular genre that I prefer. Um, so, um, so back in the early days, what sort of films I watch? Just thinking, there was one called Match Matchstick Men, Alison Loebman. Um, that's one of the first films I remember seeing. And Sin Eater, which was also called The Order, which starred Shannon Sossaman, who I'd seen earlier in the year in Rules of Attraction, which had a big impact on me, that film. So those are the films, in the early days. I mean, that was the time when I first actually started seeing films on a daily basis. Yeah, practically daily basis, maybe 4 or 5 times a week. And I started going to the cinema by myself because um, it took quite a while before I could persuade any of my friends to also get this Cineworld unlimited card. Um, but often after work, I would just go to the cinema and see films like I tell you what, one of the earliest films I remember seeing was at the cinema in late 2003 was Love Actually, and that it still is one of my favourites as far as romantic comedies go. It's just such a blend, it's such an ensemble of characters. Um, so that was a very enjoyable film. Um, quite a lot of humour, probably very British humour, but a lot of feel-good stories mixed in with one or two. rather sad stories. If you watched it, you probably remember Emma Thompson's scene. Um, um, I won't give any spoilers away, but there's various um, happy or fairly happy um, stories mixed in. There's Chris. Oh gosh, what's his name? Um, yeah, I'm not sure. I certainly don't remember the character's name, but he he decides to go on a trip over to the States, to Wisconsin in the snow just before Christmas, and he meets up with three or four even women in a bar, and they all like him. And it's just like, highly unrealistic, but there's just these like unbelievable love story elements. There was Bill Nighy, who's a rock star, who says that if his single gets to number one for Christmas, he'll run down the street naked. There's the Prime Minister, played by Hugh Hugh Grant, and um, his housekeeper, who is Martin McClutchan. Just stories like all these blended together. There was also a writer who goes out um, to write a book in southern France, I think, or he meets a Portuguese woman who um, whom he fancies. Um, so, and then there's Keira Knightley's story as well. Anyway, I'm going on rambling on about one particular film, Love Actually, just because one of the first films I saw, I'll say something about Richard Curtis films. I mean, probably it's a love-hate thing, and I don't think he does films much now. I think he gave up after about time. But back in the 90s, the mid 90s, I was volunteering after work, and I went up to the office where I did the volunteering, and on the way there was a massive film set. There was dozens of trucks all the way up the side of Highbury Fields, and I asked one of the film crew, "Oh, what's been filmed?" And this guy said, "Oh, it's called Four Weddings and a Funeral." I thought, wow, that didn't sound like a catchy name for a film, but when it got released, I recognised Union Chapel. I thought, wow, that's in Islington. And it's like one of those films when you see a film that's actually set around the area which you know very well, it just gives it an extra element of um, warmth. I think, I just thought, oh yeah, that it's a film I can relate to, just simply because I actually saw a little element of it being made. Um, so that's romantic comedies. I've seen shed loads of rom-coms over the years, and often they're not that great. There's a lot of films with very cheesy stories, but some people just like particular types of humour, and I suppose it might just not appeal to me that much. Um, and everyone has their own taste. But I've I think I've learnt a lot from just about every genre I've seen. If you've seen any of the few film reviews I've made public, I've mentioned about the the one with the dating app, The Way You Look Tonight. That was really fascinating. I thought, especially since it had elements that challenged people to think about judging people just based on looks, because there's a lot more to how people are than how they look. It's what goes on inside. It's how they behave. It's how they treat other people and how they treat animals, how they treat the whole planet. I think there's lots of other things that are just as important when it comes to judging people and deciding their value. Um, how whether they're whether they count as a good person. Good person with um, quotation marks. Um, you know, people with good characters. Um, Now, one interesting film I saw recently actually goes on that theme of it was actually a crime film, but it was based on the Seven Habits. It had an element of the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, which I think is really absolutely awesome book. I read it back in the early noughties, and it was quite an impressive book, I thought, because it it goes into subjects like um, um, the golden rule. The author Stephen Covey, who sadly died a few years ago at the age of 79. Um, he asks at the start how one thing that's really important is to think about your legacy. That's for everyone. In terms of life coaching, how would you like to be remembered at your funeral? How would you like other people to remember you? Do you want them to say that you know that you've you've left a really useful legacy, a kind legacy towards other people? Um, there's so either at your funeral or something like your 80th birthday, your 75th birthday, something like that, when your 90th birthday. But at some point in your life, when pardon me, when you get older, uh, when all of us are nearing the end of our lives, how do we want to be remembered? Um, and what I thought of was with this film, um, because it mentions it was this. I won't say the name of the film at the moment because, in a way, that means I can probably go more into the details of what happens in it. And it's not exactly a spoiler because you won't recognise it unless you've actually seen it. So there's um, someone who's driving. It's a group of army people, or they they go for a night out, and on the way home, when one isn't concentrating for a split second, is involved in a crash, and it actually kills someone in the back seat, and they get prosecuted, sent to jail, and this is in sort of very much one of the northeastern states of the US, close to the Canadian border, and um, this this guy who's gone to prison, he is he doesn't get on that well with his brother, but the one thing that unites them is brother on the outside realizes that the one in prison is really suffering. He's actually being badly treated by some of the prison guards. So he gets this idea to actually use his skills and his friends' skills. He managed to persuade some friends to help him spring him out of prison, and then get him across the border into Canada. Um, so, so it's just one of those stories that you think, oh gosh, I mean, it's quite a difficult tale of morality anyway. But the fact that the the prison wardens don't seem like very nice people. They're not treating um, the brother very fairly, um, and that is the brother who's actually his dream was to start running a business, and he's the one who mentions this book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and he hasn't read it yet, but the brother on the outside gets him a copy. So the fact is, it's almost like there's a message of hope. I mean, there's some wrongdoing going on, but in the end, he's going to be um, released. He's going to actually get out, um, and there's an opportunity if he actually does read the book, and sees these, understands the seven habits. He could develop a much uh, more principle centered life. Um, so I think it's a great book anyway. And the film I thought very interesting. The fact that it covers that area. I mean, there's a lot of films out nowadays that are have ambiguous morality, and if they create it, provoke thoughts, get us thinking and deciding for ourselves what we think is of value, then that's great. That might be um, the selling point for that particular film. Um, the one genre I find most difficult is probably sort of slasher style horror films, especially when they're very doom laden. They're full of like gore and horror and just awful things happening. Especially if it seems like there's not much hope of anyone getting out. Often you get a film that seems to follow a formula where everyone gets picked off one by one, and you wonder if the very last person is going to survive, and it becomes like a a found footage story, or or a story that's been told by that final survivor. So there's those kind of films, but they're often so bleak. Um, there has to be something in a film that has some level of optimism, some some feeling that there is some hope for humanity, and that there are characters who um, actually do things that actually um, any of us could relate to. Actually think, that person got um, got some good. Maybe they're not all good, but they're striving, they're learning. I mean, everyone has to learn from. We all have to learn from our errors as we grow up. we all make mistakes. We all, um, hopefully, we have opportunities to grow with it as the years go by and realise. And one of the things about Myles Dyer's show is the global quest for empathy. It's one of those things that after this live stream, I'm going to use the rest of the hour. I don't think I'm going to do a whole hour on this live stream. I'm watching at the moment anyway. But I thought I'd watch some of Miles's back catalogue because there's a huge amount of learning um, there. And I think I've been watching Miles's live stream since 22nd of September last year, and just it's a highlight of the week. I just think it's really interesting. But and the other people in the chat, they're really great people. Lots of very kind, thoughtful people there. So anyway, recommend you checking out, if you don't, checking out Miles's live stream. And it's a lot more professional than this thing I'm just doing on my laptop. I was going to actually set up my ring light and do this a bit more, try to do this as professional as possible, but I wasn't sure. I wouldn't have had time to do it in time. Oh yeah, and when I last tried the live stream, I think I watched some of the replay and the sound didn't seem to work properly. I'm not sure if that's the case now. I haven't set up the mic. There was a delay when I was using the mic before, but there's a lot of sound clicking. So apologies if that's happened again now. That'll make this a very duff live stream. But I'm hoping over time to build the confidence, to put in some structure to make better quality live streams and better quality films overall. Just get ideas together. I think when I last tried live streaming, I mentioned about some of the projects I've worked on before, which is sort of like a lot of my films. If you look back on the early films I've done, and I've been releasing films, uploading films since 2006, so 16 years ago now, and a lot of them have been sort of travel-based films, using kind of time-lapse, maybe not as slick as hyperlapse, but a sort of motion time-lapse where the idea is taking a photograph every 7 steps, take a photo, walk 7 more steps, take another photo, all the way along the same direction, and then afterwards stringing all the photos together to make a sort of stop motion style video along the route, so along a path. And I've done quite a few along routes such as Avoryd, which is a nature reserve in North West Wales, and Lorne Avion. Again, it's a sort of recreation path. I've done a few when I've been on holiday in California, in San Francisco and Los Angeles. I've done some in Helsinki and other parts of Finland, and I've done quite a few in London, in places like Primrose Hill, where else? Along the Thames, focusing on the London Eye and then showing um, um, the so concentrating on one location, such as the the centre of the eye as I walk along the embankment, and then turning the whole thing into a sort of artistic type of video. Um, so I think what I might do, um, if I get any responses to this at all, and this works out as a successful live stream, I'll put in some links to some of the videos I made in the past so that you can see what I'm talking about. And then if you watch them, let me know, what you think of them, because that's something else I've thought about concentrating on. I've created several accounts, and I thought, because after watching YouTube channels where they make suggestions about the best way of creating a successful channel is concentrating on one particular topic. So, sorry, my throat's a bit hoarse at the moment. I just caught been on a train for the last so how many hours? Been travelling for about 6 or 7 hours, so I feel fine, but just my throat's a bit not that great. So anyway, I'm not sure whether to follow the advice in making lots of videos on particular themes on different channels, or putting it all on this single channel, because one thing I've learned from watching Miles's live streams is there seems to be a sort of YouTube, the way the algorithms measure what you do on how many viewers you get, and the success of your channel. Um, and Miles was saying that he thinks he's got a legacy problem because he's got so many videos, and a lot of the older ones don't get many views at all. Now, if that's a problem, and I think I noticed that his viewing figures are at least double what mine are. Now I've got over 400 videos up. In fact, I've probably got 600 or 700 videos, because I've got a brand account and I've got another element of Kelly Time Cat as well. Got quite a few videos that are now unlisted. I made them that way because I needed to check about getting clearances, off the people who were interviewed. I guess a lot of hard work, um, making videos on certain subjects. I made a lot of environmentally themed videos in the past, and only some of them I've actually made public. So, and now, years later, it's almost like maybe it's not even worth trying on that. They're out of date, so better to create some new content. And hence this year's plan, which is film reviews, just talking about films I watch. I watch so many. I watched 32 in July. It's it's a lot, but it means that I can select at least one good film each week, or one film with enough to talk about, even if it's weaknesses. And that way I can, you know, write about or write about it. I do blogging as well, you see, but I can talk about what came to mind when I watched the film, um, and then if you'd like to share, you can let me know your thoughts about the film as well. Um, yeah, so I've done half an hour now. That's quite good, isn't it? For if this is, I'm going to have to watch playback to see if this has actually worked. But um, assuming it has, and you can actually hear me, and anyone does watch it, thank you very much. Um, it'd be brilliant if you subscribe. It'd be great if you got any constructive criticism, any ideas. I'm just talking totally off the cuff, just rambling on ideas that come into my head. I haven't really prepared this at all because I only discovered that Miles was ill and not going to be doing his live stream when I was on the train earlier. I didn't really get the chance. I was reading a book at the time. I was reading Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point. That's another area I've thought about. Talking about books, I don't do enough reading. I do a lot more film watching, but perhaps discussing the contents of books and ideas, that would be interesting as well. Um, so the you know a few books I'm thinking I'd be interested in reading. One is Natasha Devon's Toxic. Um, I listen to a lot of LBC radio, so James O'Brien, and I read a lot of his first book, How to Be Right in a World Gone Wrong. But I'm planning to get his second book, How to Be Wrong, I think his second book's called. So, reading non-fiction books like that, perhaps reading some fiction books, perhaps even comparing fiction in novel form and also the, the films that have been based on the book. That would be an interesting idea, I think. So, any thoughts? I'd be very interested in discussing mental health matters as well. I mean, that's something that comes up quite often on Miles's live stream, but it's such a huge area. So so many possible topics. So that's something to look into. Social media as a theme. The other day, this is going to be a film that I actually create as a review. So watch your space if you're interested. But there's the film The Social Dilemma. I saw it on Sunday with a friend, and the ideas in that film were quite amazing, but also terrifying, because there seemed to be the suggestion that the sort of rifts and divides that social media, the algorithms, and the drive to create a bigger wedge, a bigger divide between people could ultimately lead towards civil war. And in a way, what we really need is obviously it's more the opposite of that. It's we need empathy. We need to understand each other better as human beings. That's something I believe in very strongly. I think, like everyone else, got a lot to learn. So, any thoughts, especially constructive ideas, could be useful for developing a story on that subject. I mean, the whole thing about when YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, um, messages can so often lead into these heated arguments full of trolls just flaming each other, people just getting aggressive, um, hurting other people, making hurtful comments. And the the best way forward, I think, for us as a human race is to do our best to understand each other, to learn from each other, to understand the many different perspectives um, of individuals. The type of situation. People um, people aren't generally born bad as such, born evil. With there might be people who end up sociopaths, psychopaths, that sort of type of thing. But most people um, are well intentioned, but people fight, people disagree on subjects. And at the moment, there's an awful lot of hostility. I mean, there's a lot in the political world, um, and there's a lot in general discourse on social media, and so one of those things that I'd like to explore is finding common ground between people. Um, so that's that. Hopefully, that's covered quite a lot, rambled a lot, but if you've watched this, thank you very much. Please leave your comments, subscribe if you want, and hopefully see you again soon. Thank you. Bye.